Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. Chapter 8, Part 1. Something stepped on a little stick. As soon as the twig cracked, my eyes snapped open and I was wide awake. I held my breath and kept as still as I could. Whatever it was that was sneaking up on me knew I'd woke up, because it stopped moving and kept as still as it could too. Even though my head was still under my blanket, I could feel two eyes staring at me real hard, and I knew these weren't critter eyes. These eyes made the hair on the back of my neck raise up the only way human being eyes can do. Without wiggling or jiggling around too much under my blanket, I got my fingers wrapped around my jackknife. Right when I was ready to push the covers off of me and start running or stabbing, whoever it was that had been watching jumped right on top of me. I was as trapped as a roach under a dish rag. I tried to guess the exact spot that the person's heart was at, then pulled my knife back. A voice said, "If you ain't a kid called Bud from the home, I'm really sorry about jumping on you like this." It was Bugs. When I tried to talk, it felt like I had to suck all the air out of Flint. I finally got breathing right and said, "Doggone it, Bugs, it is me. You nearly scared me to death." He got off of me and I threw the blanket over to the side. "You don't know how lucky you are. I was just about fixing to stab you in the heart." Bugs looked like he knew he'd just had a real close call. He said, "I'm sorry, Bud. I didn't mean to scare you, but everybody knows how you like to sleep with that knife open, so I figured I'd best grab hold of you so you wouldn't wake up slicing nobody." Shucks. Even though it was Bugs who'd come real close to getting his heart poked, I was the one who was still having trouble catching my breath. I asked, "How come you aren't back at the home?" But before he had a chance to answer, I knew. "You're on a lamb." Bug said, "Yup, I'm going back to riding the rails. When I heard about you beating that kid up so bad that you had to take off, I figured it was time for me to get going too. I thought you might be hanging around the library, so I come down to see if you want to go with me." "Where are you heading?" "There's always fruit to be picked out west. I heard we could make enough money to get by out there. There's supposed to be a train leaving sometime tomorrow. Did you really beat that kid up in the foster home?" I said, "Uh-huh. We kind of had a fight. How long's it take to get out west?" Bug said, "Depends on how many trains you got to hop." "Was he really 2 years older than you?" "Uh-huh. He was 12. Is it fun to hop a train?" "Some of the time it is. Some of the time it's scary." "We heard he was kind of big, too. Was he?" I said, "He was pretty big. I can't see how we can hop on a train. They look like they're moving pretty doggone fast." Bug said, "Most times you don't hop them when they're going fast. Most times you try to climb on one when it's sitting in the train yard. Did the guy cry after you whipped him?" "Well, kinda. He looked real scared. Then told his mama to keep me away from him. They even said I was a hoodlum." "Will we be sleeping on the train and everything?" "Sure we will. Some of the time the train don't stop for 2 or 3 days. Man, I always try to tell people that just because someone's skinny, it don't mean they can't fight. You're a hero now, Bud." "Nah, I didn't really do nothing much." "Well, how about the toilet? How are we going to use the toilet if the train doesn't stop?" Bug said, "You just kind of lean out of the door and go. When the train is still moving, yeah, you get a real nice breeze." "Aw, man, that sounds great. Count me in. I can't wait." Bug spit a big glob of slob in his hand and said, "I knew I could depend on you, Bud." I spit a big glob in my hand and said, "We're brothers forever, Bugs." We slapped our hands together as hard as we could and got our slobs mixed up real good, then waved them in the air so they'd dry. Now it was official. I finally had a brother. Bug said, "We'll go down to the mission. There's bound to be someone there that knows about where we can hop this train. Then we'll be on the lam together." We found out that we'd have to go to a city called Hooperville, just outside of Flint. The only trouble was nobody knew exactly where Hooperville was. It was dark before we found out the right direction. I'd never heard of a city that was so doggone hard to find. We walked on a trail through some woods that run right up against Thread Creek. We could tell we were getting close to Hooperville because we heard somebody playing a mouth organ and the smell of food cooking was getting stronger. We kept walking in the direction that the sky was glowing with an orangish light. When we could hear the music real clear and folks talking to each other and the sound of sticks cracking in a fire, we started cutting through the trees. That way we could peek into Hooperville first. We looked out from behind a big tree and saw that a big wind or even 2 or 3 big wolves huffing and puffing real hard could blow Hooperville into the next county. It was a bunch of huts and shacks thrown together out of pieces of boxes and wood and cloth. The Amos's shed would have looked like a real fancy house here. Right near our tree was the big fire that had been lighting up the sky. It looked like 100 people were sitting around it, watching things burn or waiting for the food cooking in 3 big pots set up in the fire. There were 2 littler fires burning in Hooperville. One had a pot that was big enough to boil a whole person in it. A man was stirring things in the pot with a big stick, and when he raised the stick up, he'd pull some breeches or a shirt out and pass it over to a white man who was hanging the clothes on the line to dry. There was a mountain of clothes on the ground next to him, waiting on their turn. The other fire in Hooperville was real small. It was off to the side, by itself. There were 5 white people sitting at the fire, 2 kids, a man, and a woman holding a little wrapped-up baby. The baby sounded like all those new sick babies at the home. It was coughing like it was a half-dead little animal. Bug whispered, "Shoot, this ain't no city. This is just another cardboard jungle." "A what?" "A cardboard jungle. Somewhere you can get off the train and clean up and get something to eat without the cops chasing you out of town." I said, "Well, what are we going to do? We can't just go busting into this city and expect someone to feed us, can we?" Bug said, "One of us has got to talk to them. Let's flip for it." "Okay." Bugs rumbled around in his pocket and found a penny. He rubbed it up against his breeches and said, "Heads I win, tails you lose." "Okay." He flipped the penny up into the air and caught it, then slapped it down on the back of his left hand. He peeked underneath his right hand to see, and a big smile cracked his face. "Shucks!" Bug said. "Tails, you lose." "Dang, so what should I say?" "Ask them if this is Hoopersville. See if they got any extra food." I moved out from behind our tree and walked over toward the biggest fire. I waited until some folks noticed me then. "Excuse me, is this here Hooperville?" The man who was playing the mouth organ stopped, and everyone else around the fire looked up at me. One of the white men said, "What is it you looking for?" I said, "A city called Hooperville, sir." They all laughed. The mouth organ man said, "Nah, son, what you're looking for is Hooversville with a V, like in President Herbert Hoover." I said, "Oh, is this it, sir?" The man said, "This is one of them." I said, "One of them?" He answered, "They're all over the country. This here is the Flint version." "And all of them are called Hooverville?" "That's right. Mr. Hoover worked so hard at making sure every city has got one that it seems like it would be criminal to call them anything else." Someone said, "That's the truth." I said, "Well, how are we going to know if we're in the right one?" Mouth organ man said, "Are you hungry?" "Yes, sir." "Are you tired?" "Yes, sir." "Are you scared about what's going to happen tomorrow?" I didn't want anyone to think I was a baby, so I said, "Not exactly scared, sir. Maybe I am a little bit nervous." The man smiled and said, "Well, son, any place where there are other folks in need of the same things that you are is the right place to be. This is exactly the Hooversville you're looking for." End part 1.